Joy that you promised me.
Nyumba Upendo, Milwaukee. Welcome to WNOV's own Nyumba Upendo show. It means House of Love. We just want to welcome you here. I'm here with Dr. Alicia Mushi. We got a special guest. And I'm going to quit calling her a special guest because she's just a family friend of the show and everything like that. But Alicia, I'm going to let you start with the P&Ps today.
Well, you know what? We had an opportunity, as we always do, to get the prayers and the permissions from our elders so that we have the respect and we have the opportunity and the permission to be able to speak. And so I did get an opportunity to talk to Mom. It's so funny. She knows that this is her responsibility before the show. So she had a doctor's appointment, but she was like, well, let's hurry up before I got to go in. I was like, it don't matter, Mom. Just let's make it happen. And she did just that. And so she's prayed again that our words and our actions may bless someone today. And then before we could even start, we had our guests that can feel our anxiousness and everything that we are going through, and she prayed for us as well. So I am going to thank in advance that this show will be what somebody needs to hear today.
Amen.
Yeah, this is probably one of the hardest shows for me when you hear the topic. And we always talk about an ancestor who we dedicate the show to. And all I could think of was Uncle Cliff, my Uncle Clifford Smith.
Yes.
Complicated man. I think that's the best way I could put that. And so when I think about issues of domestic violence, that's always ones that's come because you look at it on both sides and you see the ramifications for families, that have years and decades worth of sting. Oftentimes, when we talk about a topic like domestic violence, we'll think about a specific incident, or we might think about, one person who had to deal with it, but not some of the ramifications of people not even born that it affects and things of that nature. And it's hard when you're on the other side of that coin of domestic violence, when you are a lover of the person who commits that act, because you have these conflicted feelings like, I love this person. This person has poured into me. They've shown me things, but
I've seen the good in them.
Yes.
Right.
But then when you see some of the other atrocities, and I think this was amplified for me when I worked at Milwaukee Secure Detention Facility, working with men specifically in the domestic violence and AODA groups, good brothers. But you look and you say horrific things that was done. And I'm not saying they were always in the wrong or always perpetrated it, but from the stories they would tell when they would take accountability for their part, you would see these things and you're like, oh my goodness. And you just hear the ramifications. So if you haven't figured out, today's show's topic is going to be dealing with domestic violence, intimate partner violence. And that's why we brought in our friend, our family, Simmone Kilgore.
Welcome and welcome
She's
back.
the one who gave us that wonderful prayer. And you know what? It's so funny because she was just telling me before that a woman who I look up to, like with the highest esteem, Dr. Juliet Martin Thomas, was asking, about me. And so we're long overdue. I owe so many people phone calls. I know I got so many people mad at me that I ain't got back with. But the funny thing about Dr. Juliet Martin Thomas, why I say, oh, she's special, is because she saw something in Simmone. I always remember the story with Simmone during her hair. She said, oh, baby, you got the gift. And that goes into even today, her ability to say, let's pray. Because she said, I see something here.
So she felt
but let's let
she felt the energy.
I felt both.
Yeah. And because
she's sandwiched in between us.
Oh,
So
yeah.
she's getting it on both sides.
No, because the energy I tell you when I talk about my Uncle Cliff, and Simmone is from Beloit, so she know the story, intimately. And so when we think about like these things, what we want to do is we want to talk about this very, very difficult topic, but also talk about like not just explaining, understanding it, how we can avoid it, but how do we deal with the aftermath? Because so many of us are still living in it. Even if we weren't personally involved, we get the vicarious trauma or we get the secondary trauma from the ill effects of it. So I'm gonna just start with you and kind of like explain to the people, like kind of define it so they understand, you hear it all of the time, but when you hear intimate partner violence or domestic violence, what are you thinking of? How do you define it?
Yeah,
as a professional?
People, thanks, Doc and Dr. Mutri. I always say I'm with the docs. The docs. And thank you for the invite to be here again, specifically for this specific subject, as October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. You all know that I do work in this capacity serving survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence every day at my 9 to 5. But even in my private practice, or like Doc said, in our families, we know folks that have experienced what we call domestic violence. And so I think under the window of domestic violence, or the umbrella of it, we have different violences that take part.
Yes.
Specifically, domestic violence is just a pattern of coercive, either physical, emotional, spiritual, financial abuse, verbal abuse that causes fear and this inability to make informed decisions about your life based on the pressures from somebody that you happen to care about. Domestic violence in particular is all about domestic, who you live with.
Okay.
But intimate partner violence can be between a person and their partner, whomever they're intimate with, or partners that they're intimate with. We have survivors of human trafficking that also experience intimate partner violence, which we might not label as domestic violence, but this all kind of falls under the window of that. And then the entire idea around domestic violence is to be put in this cycle of power and control. The person that commits these harms generally needs that type of control and power in order to feel powerful, in charge, respected at times. Generally, you'll find too psychologically that those that do commit those crimes often saw it as a child, see it as a way out or a way to get a person to understand what they mean and what they say.
It's like when we say this, and this is where a lot of people be like, all right, hold on, because I say, when you whoop your children, what you're teaching them is might makes right. You don't do what I say. Now you do what I say, or you shut your mouth. One of the two. Either you do what I say, or you at least faking it like you do, and you learn, oh, this is it. But let's go back a little bit, because especially I know with some of our listeners being older and whatnot, it was certain things I heard within our household. As children, they say shut up, and so you listen.
Yeah.
And I would hear, there's sometimes adults thinking you talking over somebody's head, but you listening. And I would hear women say, I'd rather have a piece of a man than none of a man. That man don't love you if that man don't hit you. So these were things in which you were trained to believe it's okay. It's okay to do. It's okay to receive. In fact, it's a form of love. Talk about how that started to shift to say, maybe this is a form of love, but it's a dysfunctional form of love.
Yeah. I think there is this whole thing when you said that, it made me think a little bit about our ancestors and slavery, and coming up in a time where many of our ancestors had to deal with kind of what Doc said, that whole physical and emotional abuse to stay in line. It's a part of policing, which came through slavery, which is about abuses to keep you in line. And so oftentimes, specifically in the Black community and others, but the pressure specifically that Black and brown men felt societal wise, women or wives or the mothers of their children didn't want to add more pressure. So it was always this thing about tiptoeing around this man, this brother, and his stressors, right? Don't poke the bear. Don't poke the bear. Don't wake him up too early. Don't be too loud. Don't ask for too much. Just stay in line, because he is already dealing with so many societal pressures. And it was around the time with feminism and the women's movement, and knowing what women did for soldiers that were in Vietnam, like how we held it down, specifically Black and brown women, how they held it down in this country. Once they returned back, there 50s, 60s, there was this movement around women and wellness. And this whole thing around, I ain't got to be hit in the head. I'm just trying to serve you dinner. You know what I mean? Or the kids want to play with you. Right? You don't have to be angry in here. It's safe. I'm safe. I got you, bruh. Same things we say right now. Right?
Don't displace this on me. That's not how
don't put it on me, because I'm not the source of your anger.
Come on.
Oftentimes the source was from childhood or from pressures or not getting paid a decent wage. I get it. But brother, you ain't going through nothing that we ain't going through collectively. And I got you. Thinking a lot about what we said about supporting those that support us. But that idea around feeling like there's no outlets, and that physical anger that's internalized. Oftentimes older Black men or men of that time were also abused by parents. Not only society, but be quiet, pop, be quiet, and sit down, don't talk. So that kind of long frustration of not being
Just
heard,
built
and
up.
it builds up and up and up until the attack comes out. It's an explosion of either some kind of outside of the word of sin, but some kind of outside thing that you need, whether it's women, gambling, drugs, whatever. But also that physical abuse can also be a cycle of addictive behaviors that are learned very early in life. We talk about early childhood attachment. What did I see? What did I think that works? Is this how my mom responded? Is this how my dad got what he
Because they love me. I'm whooping you because I love you. They
love me.
This
so
hurt me more than it hurt you.
It hurts me more than it hurts you. When the cycle starts, I think oftentimes I've met with people, men in particular, that are surprised by their own behaviors and very sad about it. Very sad about being an abuser. Women as well. Yes, I've abused him. I'm sorry. I shouldn't slap him. I shouldn't hit him. That's what I saw growing up. And so I want to be very cognizant of this idea about those that do abuse. I know it's a negative and it's wrong, but I definitely have a special place in my heart for those that commit this violence as well, because it's something deep seated.
Because it's heavy on them as well. And this is an outlet, a way of getting off. Remember, we talked about that sometimes when you're going through, you got to find a way to release it. Otherwise, it eats you. Unfortunately, that's a negative component of somebody that is an abuser. They do it so that they can release that. But I wanted to, you had talked a little bit about like this physical abuse. Like we're talking about domestic abuse. So if I see someone that has marks or they've been hit physically, I know that that's typically, I know that that's what
you got the black eye,
like.
you got a broke nose.
But I wanted to dig into before you said there's a cycle of it, right? It starts. But what are some of, like, for our listeners, because somebody may be going through some stuff right now that we don't even know we're being groomed for. We just got the start of it. What does it look like from the very beginning to before? Because I typically think it goes to somewhere before it gets to this real deep level.
Sure. Well, number one, understanding who your partner is. First of all,
or partners. Here we go.
Understanding what they saw in their household. It's interesting when people date. I'm in the mix of trying to. It's not working too great. Let me start right there. But anyway, this idea of trying to get to know somebody, right? And so we think it's all the surfacey things of, and it's not surfacey, but what they do, how much money they make, where they live, type thing, hobbies. But I'm way more interested in family dynamics. Probably because I'm a therapist, but also what'd you see your mom? How your mama respond to trauma? How did your mom respond to busy times, holidays? How did she respond, or how did your dad respond? What did you see in the household? How did they communicate? How did they resolve issues? Because when you marry or link up with a partner, it is extremely important to understand how they handle conflict.
Ooh, say that again.
How do they handle not having money in the bank?
That's why I'm a fan of arranged marriages.
A lot of money in the bank.
Arranged marriages. The families know each other. They say, "I know how you is. You know how I am. You ain't got no problem with the family because you know, hey, we got similar values and whatnot." And it seemed like arcade. They say, "Ooh, no," because if there's family similarities and commonalities and enough to say, I like you enough to say, I want to mix with you. You already got a cohesion. You already got some type of unity. But when you talk about like not knowing the families and you're like, well, I'm not marrying the family. Oh, yes, you are. You marrying that family and the past of that family.
And all and down and down and down. And
generations.
Down. Yes. And I think it's important that we say we're raising these children up together. How do we want them to handle conflict? Do they know how to go take a couple deep breaths before responding back? Do they know that sometimes words really hurt?
Yeah, you ain't got to say everything that comes to your mouth.
You don't have to say everything that comes to your mouth, no matter how much you're provoked and no matter how angry you are. Can you move around? And
well, hold on, because I just know how our callers be sometimes, and there's a couple callers you get that always want to. We say poke the bear.
They want some.
So how would you respond to that already when they say, okay, theoretically that sounds nice, like I'm gonna take a couple breaths, I'm gonna walk away. But how do you really do that in the moment, especially when you're carrying all this past trauma and pains and stuff that ain't got nothing to do with them, but it's easy to displace at that moment?
I would prefer to ask the question, what cost are you prepared to pay if you don't learn?
Come on.
As opposed to, sometimes people say, yeah, it's really hard. It is. Any type of behavioral change, for me in particular, Simmone, is difficult. I have to really work at it. I have to practice practice. I have to acknowledge that I didn't do things right in the past, which sometimes can be very difficult to acknowledge my mistakes or my faults. I have to acknowledge that I've harmed somebody that I love. But I understand that at the end of that, there's no reward for any of us. There's no benefit
So
in me
lose.
snapping off because you snapped off, or just snapping off because I chose to.
Mhm.
And so I would ask any caller that might question that, or anybody to question themselves and say, what's the cost you're paying or willing to pay if you don't change these behaviors? Because one of the things I do know, we talked a little bit earlier, Doc, just about adjusting for family and the importance of doing so. And I'll tell you, my 30 and 23 caused me to make major adjustments in my life over and over and over.
Yeah.
And now I'm a GG. It's the best thing in the world. And they make me, it's the best thing ever. They make me want to adjust even more. If I look at mine and they look like me and I adore them and I want them healthy and whole and happy, I gotta show and model the behavior.
Okay.
It's not enough to talk.
So let me ask you this, because I love everything that you said. What about our people who don't got nobody, who they love enough that they want to model for? They don't see us a hope in their future. You know, it's like, I don't care about me, so I don't care about none of y'all. How do we reach that person who doesn't have those kind of guiding posts to give them the incentive to do better?
Yeah, I still think it's modeled community behavior. I think it's conversations like this. I think it's me taking the time to slow down in the grocery store, so like I did 2 days ago, to talk to a young woman about some things that I heard. I think it's courageous to stop and talk to a stranger about abuse.
That's love. That's real love.
Awareness. How you talk to your kids, what
and
you're taking off
bravery
your
in this
partner.
day and age.
Right.
Or checking in on
Stop
people.
hit. Don't slap him again. Don't bust his car windows again. Type thing. So I think it's important that we all do the work. I'm a big proponent in I'm nobody's savior, but I don't have a right to even be here without extending support and help where I can. Now, I don't really know why other people think they own the planet, but I'm very clear.
I think you need to rewind that and say that one time again from I'm not a savior, but
I'm not a savior, but I have a purpose here.
Yes.
And I'm very clear that I was born to help other people connect to healing, power, and hope. I'm very clear because I've tried to walk away from it. One. Number two, we think we're here for all the wrong reasons, and we have messed up as a people. My Uncle Cliff's, my cousins, my friends and them need to know, hey, we all better than this. What can I do to help?
You know, you say this, and I'm thinking about this time. I'm driving. It's probably about 8:30 at night down Titonia. I'm going to my guy house, and I see this man and this woman fighting. And I was like, not my problem, not my problem. I drive 2 feet. It's my problem. I turn around and all I'm thinking is, man, if I get shot, what happened? So the guy finally gets away from the girl because the girl is the aggressor. And so he gets away. She's banging on his window. Then he gets out when she started banging on her. I said, bro, come on. Hey, I said, you know, they didn't call the police already because we not on Titonia. We on the northwest side of Titonia. I said, they coming quick and you going down. So he was like, man, I didn't want to do it. I've been trying to get away. So then she come hollering at me. He gets in the car and goes off. He leaves. This young lady gets in my car, follow him. And I'm like, I'm not following him. And all I'm thinking is, man, what's going to happen when the police come? This girl is in my car. Hey, Stacy, go here. What is you doing? I thought you was going about your man.
Like, you say, maybe I should have just kept going.
And then she was like, take me to his house. I know where he lives. I said, I'm not taking you to his house. So she calls him on the phone. Now they cussing at each other. Then I don't know how it happens to me, but 5 minutes, I'm in a therapy session with him. It's like a couples therapy. And I'm talking him down. And he finally goes his way. She said, well, just drop me off here. So I drop her off there. She gets out. It's like, my heart is like, because I'm thinking like what I just got into, but it was like what you said. I wasn't thinking, I wasn't trying to get into that, but it was that moment where you put your own life at risk, not thinking because you're thinking of the bigger picture.
And sometimes aren't you just compelled to do things? Sometimes I want to walk away, but it's
I
just on my
left.
heart is killing. I know,
I had to
but I
turn
did
around.
the same thing with a young man. He was being jumped by about 4 different boys. Now I'm a lady, so I'm like, I really shouldn't get involved in this,
Yeah.
but I'm like, I cannot not
Not
do
do
something.
something.
I have a son, and I think if somebody saw my son being jumped like that,
Wouldn't it hurt
how
your
am I?
heart?
It would, that nobody would do anything, right?
Yeah.
So so with that, in fact, what I did is I couldn't go and physically help the person, but what I did is I just took my car and I kind of did something crazy. I drove up on the sidewalk. I'm honking my horn. The boys jumped. I started flashing my lights. Then the boys went ahead and they went away. The young, I did something. I couldn't physically help them, but what I did is I pulled my car again. I drove kind of crazy fast, and then also the honking and the lights, and I didn't know what to do, but it just came to me. I did that, and they walked. The boys ran, and then the young man was there. And I just
because they like
up.
eyes.
I said, "Where do you live?" And he was close by because I really was at that point was ready to take him home, but he lived really close by. I said, "You need to go home. You need to figure. You need to let somebody know that this happened. Your school, your parents, somebody, because I said it's the grace of God that I happened to be right here, and I was willing to stop for you." And then I left.
Or was it?
That's what you said, though. The grace of God.
Yeah.
That was that
it's
protector.
by God's grace that anybody gets out of these situations. 1 in 3 women, 1 in 4 men are affected by domestic violence on a regular basis, on a daily basis. So 1, 2, 3 out of all the sisters, people have experienced domestic violence.
I want you to hold that right there because we got to take a break.
Okay.
We're gonna come back in, but I want you to hear what she said. 1 in 3.
Yeah.
So if I'm looking in this room, it's 1, 2. I open the door, I see Miss Carolyn. So just look around.
And I
it's the
see
people
1,
who
2,
you love and you
me.
care.
Right.
What we do. Come back, join us on the other side of Nyumba Upendo. You're listening to us on WNOV 860 AM. Welcome back to Nyumba or Nyumba Upendo. We say Nyumba Upendo. We love you. That song just gets me in my emotions. It says, because you just never alone. Just remember, wherever you are, every time you pray, every time you call, there is someone who will answer when you think no one will answer. You know, we're talking about domestic violence, and I think this is that time too, because so many times when you're caught up in that situation, you know, we sometimes put a face to it.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes that face is because it's a person who is prominent in the community. It is a person who has a reputation, who has a title, and they say, I can't let anybody know that I'm going through this. And so they suffer in silence. And that's why we say we can't be silenced about this violence. And what we want to do is to talk about, hey, let's address it. Let's see what the signs are. What are some of the things we can do? So you was talking about the number of people who are exposed to this. So sometimes we think, oh, this doesn't touch my family. And I tell people, it's touching your family. You might just not know.
Yeah,
it's touching your family
completely. There's a saying. First of all, like you said, you're never alone. I love that song too, because you are never alone. There's help everywhere. Let's just say that 1,000,000 times today.
Come on.
But also, everyone knows someone that is affected by domestic violence.
Yeah.
Everyone. I think it's difficult to say though. Yeah, this happened to me.
Yeah.
For the one time or for twice, or they just choked me, or they just slapped me, or they just held me down.
We minimize it.
We minimize it because there's some shame associated with being a victim survivor.
And you want to protect the person.
And you want, specifically in the Black and brown community, we want to protect whoever that partner is. If it's a female or a male, does not matter. Or if they identify any other kind of way. We don't want to send our people to jail. And I get that. So there's this protective cyclical pattern of kind of experiencing these things, this violence, you know, feeling some kind of upset. We talk about the cycle and the wheel of control where the incident happens. Then you have a down period of silence and separation. Then you have a period of, I'm so sorry, baby, 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 I love you. And then the makeup
and the gifts.
The gifts and the makeup is delicious. And each time it has to be better than the last time that you apologize, that we made love, that we went on a trip, that we got gifts. It has to be better.
I see
right?
Ike Turner bringing in that fur coat, putting it right by there, and giving her the kiss on the cheek.
Can I tell you, I have an actual personal friend that has said to me, and I know that she's dealing with domestic abuse. Her comment to me was, his good outweighs the bad. I have to just deal with that every once in a while. But he's so good to me. Yeah, so it kind of goes like what you were describing.
But you know, and see, now this is a hard part about when you talk about people relationships. That is their relationship. It is. Because you just think like, okay, if two brothers fight and then they get back together, you don't think nothing about that. You like these brothers fighting and stuff like that. But then when it's a couple, I don't want that. But you say, if that's somebody in their relationship, that's where it becomes complicated, because you can't tell anybody how they can function.
Yeah, I think we have to have those real important conversations. You made me think of 3 other sisters and myself. We went to middle school together, and we get together for each other's birthdays. We're in different areas, different states, but we've had some heart to hearts. And this last one in particular was like a call to action. Fam, what you about to do? Somebody said do this. I'm calling on Monday. You going on Wednesday. We talked on Wednesday. Oh, you tapped in. You got the help you needed. Did you make another appointment? Like the accountability piece on my end is to not be intrusive. Never. It's an offering. You know what I'm saying? There's an offering,
acknowledgement
of
self,
it too,
right?
Acknowledgement and offering of, this don't have to be your life. And guess why? Because we know you can be happier and healthier. Not about my opinion, not what I think about this person, the partner.
That's key too.
Because that ain't gonna get nobody nowhere talking about how horrible he or she is.
That just make them want to ride for them a little harder, because they do some good stuff.
And guess what? Like you said, there is good in that person.
Right.
There's good in that person. However, my friend is suffering. And I ain't going.
And I love you.
Right. And I love you. So I'm not leaving the planet without saying, accountability sister to sister. If it's me, come to me.
Right. And sometimes we know it and we just don't want to say it. It's almost like we were talking about before the break. We had a pull that we had to intervene and we had to get involved for strangers, right? But the question is, how are we doing that for friends that we know, or that you got to like step back out of it? But the question is, what are we willing to do? And maybe what are some of the little things that you can do so that you're acknowledging, I know that you're going through this and I love you and you're better than that. But again, not attacking the person though.
Big time. Some of the signs have everything to do with them preventing you or keeping you isolated from friends and family, but also things you like to do. If I like to roller skate and every time Sunday night come, my partner is like, where you going again? Huh? That kind of thing. Or they blame you for their abusive behaviors. It's because of you. If
that's
you
a psychological abuse.
Yeah. It's a seed that's being planted.
You provoked me, right? You provoked me to do it.
Oh, Kyrie, come to the mic.
About the kids too. You know what I'm saying? When you say to your kids, after you slap them, you made me
do that.
No, they didn't make you.
We just want to hear you. like a Kyrie.
Yeah, he joined us last time too.
Kyrie P speaking. What if the person that's been like psychologically misled, what if they are in that state and don't know how to recover from that state?
Go get help.
But what if you can't? What if that's the type of person that don't know how to retrieve help or don't know how to accept help?
They're gonna be lost. I'm just very plain.
Yeah, you got to,
If they're the kind of person, which I don't never want to be that person in any area of my life, lawn care. If I need help and support, I'm gonna raise my hand and say, I need some help in this area. Does it always come that easy? No, but turmoil, pain, and lack of movement, lack of healing, lack of awareness, lack of an ability to become a better version of yourself as much as you can. Who do it daily? Nobody, because it makes you tired. But the objective is to try to be the best version of yourself that you can daily. If I'm a person that don't want help, I'm going to stay in an abusive pattern.
Now, just to piggyback off of what he was saying, because this just came to me. What if that person thinks, because they've been going through it for so long, when this is the norm, and they don't believe in that they need help because they think that they are normal and everybody else.
They normalize the dysfunction.
Exactly. See what I'm saying? So they won't know how to ask for help because they think that this is the norm. So this is how it's supposed to be, and everybody else is living in a whole different world.
It's a psychological chokehold. It's a spiritual warfare.
Yeah.
To believe that if you've normalized hitting, slapping, detaining, verbally abusing, physically, spiritually, if you've normalized that behavior, that's a spiritual, psychological warfare, and you absolutely need help. I believe in the term deliverance, and I believe that this idea of being delivered from anything that's going to bring ills on me as the abuser, I wouldn't only be harming you. I'm harming me.
See, now I think because times are changing, and I'm totally with you 110%, but because of this whole new wave of thinking, people are now saying what's normal, and who are you to say what's normal? So things that we would have never even thought about doing are becoming normal.
Like therapy.
Yeah.
Like group therapy, like
exactly,
discussions amongst Black men and Asian men and people coming together in these work groups to say, it could be normal. Maybe I've seen it my whole life. We talked a little bit about slavery and that kind of cyclical behaviors from the master harming folks to then that Black male figure in the house handing down that same kind of violence that the master handed off to him, to the Black mother giving it to their kids. And I'm saying that we have a whole society or group of people that are sick from it.
You told Harpo to beat me.
Yeah.
And she was getting beat by Harpo. But then she told her son
was more mad
to go do that
because it was a verbalized thing versus what was really physically happening. We're more angry about verbalizing that the abuse is happening between you and I. Then
don't worry about that business. Don't do with that. Go ahead, Carvey.
We'd rather not talk about it. Yeah, it's interesting.
Hey, why Carvey come? If anybody else have a question, feel free to call in at 444-5250, 444-5253. Both of those lines are open. We know this is a hard topic, but if it's something you want to share or you think might be helpful to somebody else who's listening, please, the phone lines are open for you. Brother Carvey, go ahead.
See, I was gonna say, I just know like it's good people out there, and I'm an eyewitness to a few, and I just know like um through their path, it's been a lot of stuff that was in a some stuff like it was in their hands and some stuff it wasn't, but I noticed like they didn't heal from those things, that may have caused them to act how they are, right now. And I want to help them people, you know what I'm saying? Especially the ones that's close to me.
Yeah, people who you love.
And sometimes you might can't come off the right way to that person because they see you a certain type of way.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I'll be wanting to just like give up, but like I can't give up though.
It's courageous to help. Let me say it one more time. It takes bravery and courageousness, but it also is, again, for me in particular, a responsibility. And so my help sometimes to family is me just doing what I do every day. It ain't direct to them. Sometimes it might be this on the kitchen table.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's a 1-800 number on the refrigerator. Sometimes it's, hey, yo, cuz, I love you, and I know that's your dude or that's your girl, and I love both of y'all, but I think what y'all doing is foul.
Yeah.
So anything I can help you with, let me know, because I'm with the docs, and maybe they can give me some information. It's all kind of ways to do it. Drop the help and move around.
Say that again.
Drop the help and move around.
Yes.
People think that if you're trying to help them, you're trying to be in their business.
Right.
I don't even want nobody else's business. I got so
Say,
much
I got
of my
enough
own.
on my own
I don't
plate.
want nobody else's. But if I'm supposed to be there to help, there's something that won't let me go.
Right.
And so kind of what you kind of just described, I almost felt it on you when you said, I don't want to not help. I got to do it.
Yeah.
So that's a calling. Respond to it. It's in your spirit to say, hey, you my friend, dude. I see how you treat your partner, your girl, whatever. I think there's a better way to go about it. There's this men's talk at the barbershop on Mondays. There's all kind of ways that you can drop help and move around.
Yeah.
You don't have to be intrusive, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
And what she said, I love to watch movies that emulate life.
Oh, that's
Because
another-
people
that's
see
another
themselves,
strategy.
and you talk about with your friend, let's go see this movie.
Yeah.
Because now when you see it, when you see yourself,
Yeah.
it's like hard to, and that starts a conversation, but also no, you ain't got to do it all. Like what I love what Simmone said earlier. She said, I'm not a savior, but, and what that but means is, but I got to do something. I'm part of it. So you might be the one who plant the seed. You might not see the flower go. Somebody else come after what you said and proverbial water that seed. They hear it again. Now I can't ignore it. Because even if you say something like, forget you, Jermaine, you do the same thing, which could be the case. But that don't mean what he just said wasn't true. And that's it in my spirit.
Yeah.
And at some point in time, it's going to come back. It's going to get me.
Well, I think that's really important. Like where you were talking about sometimes when people don't speak up, or you have that friend and you don't say anything. I think that, like you said, you plant the seed and it may not grow today, but at some point it will.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is some people never, if no one ever says anything, that's how someone gets isolated. And they think that's a normal way to be able to receive. That's because nobody's taking the courage to have that, that conversation or to plant a seed. It's really important. If you know somebody today and you're listening, again, we're not saying you got to be the savior, but if it's pulling on your heart and if it's, and
That's
you're
how you
thinking
know,
about somebody,
'cause
yes,
it's pulling on you.
that's the sign.
It won't
Don't
leave
ignore the sign, and it's not going to leave you, because if in fact something does happen, you're gonna sit with it, and you're not gonna be happy with yourself because you were
No, when you
given
at
the
that
message.
funeral, when you're
That's
looking
what
at the
I was gonna
casket.
say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Working with so many individuals who are now saying, my friend is gone. Domestic violence, intimate partner violence has been
Because it only
leading.
escalates.
It's been escalating. Like 70% at the rate is of homicide/suicide amongst intimate partner violence. Do you know how many people are saying, I knew this was going on years ago and I should have said something? Or how many children are parentless?
Yes.
They're parentless because mom, dad, whatever, mom's
Suicide,
partner, dad's
homicide.
partner, suicide,
Mhm.
homicide, or the partner that killed the other person is now in prison for life. And so there are a lot of children that are parentless due to that as well.
We have a caller on. Caller, you're listening to Nyumba Upendo. You have a question or a comment?
More or less a comment to you, brother. Assalamu alaikum to you, sir.
Walaikum salam.
Yes, sir. Just listening to you guys speaking about, I think you were talking about like friendships and relationships and dysfunction with regard to relationships, or it runs the gamut, right? No.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're talking about domestic violence, intimate partner
Oh.
violence, and the different ways in which it can manifest itself.
Got it. Yes, sir. Okay. And this is what I would like to add with my 1.5 cents of an opinion. From personal experiences, I've never had like persons or people that who I value that were afraid or to tell me the truth about something that they thought that I was doing. That they thought that because the biggest room is the room for improvement, and since
I say.
that
Mhm.
that was always my predisposition, and I knew that if this person was chastising me or saying something to me, it wasn't to be overly critical, whereas it would diminish me. It was to be critical of the behavior that I was expressing, and that they had greater expectations, and that since I was taught better, that I should exhibit what I was taught, with regard to my behavior, as opposed to being rebellious. And a lot of times, what we see with concerning dysfunction in all aspects of any relationships, and where they become violent, I think the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan says that when it comes to men, when the man becomes a violent person with a woman, it's because he lacks understanding with regard to himself and her. And since he has our disposition, physically speaking, a lot of times a brother might go to that, and that is a part of what Mr. Paris was talking about, theocracy, and what I said with regard to white supremacy being the theocracy. And I'll go with this: the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that there were three sciences that the Caucasian would not teach black people: the science of business, the science of mating, and was the science of business, mating, and there's another one that escapes my memory right now. But there are three sciences that we were not taught, and mating has to do with relationships. Caucasian people, when they mate, they look at genetics uh, primarily, and they look at longevity. A lot of us, we look at aesthetics with regard to appearance, and we say, well, that sister look good, she fine, and our baby's gonna look like this. We don't take into consideration if there's anything that if we do copulate, that the children could be predisposed to. But Caucasians, they understand the science of mating. That's why they plan their mating out a lot better than we do, because that's a knowledge that wasn't shared with us. We were just taught to mate and procreate, not the science with regard to genetics and how it can impact our progeny. And I hope that makes some sense.
No, yeah, we appreciate your call, Christopher.
Yes, sir.
Simone?
Yeah, I like what he said too about this idea. I don't know the science on it in terms of that, but I do know there's a lot more black and brown people or brothers that I'm just talking to in general saying, find out how she treats her mom, find out how he talks to his mom, find out how he feels about his sisters or women in the community, find out how she treats men. Is she respectful? Can she express herself without getting hyped up or angry or fighting or type of thing? And then if she is vocal and happens to get angry, does that mean violent or disrespectful? And so I think all those things what Christopher mentioned was good, but I also think it needs to be a discussion when you are connecting with somebody. They can't only be fine, Simmone. Like I said, I like
You
nice
gotta have some
shoulders and a
depths to
nice
it.
fade, but you got to have more than nice
Yeah.
shoulders and a nice fade, right? We got to talk a little bit about your upbringing and some of the things that have brought you pain, so I get a better understanding for how you hear me.
Yeah.
Right? How I'm being received. It's a big thing. So I don't know about black, white, in terms of ethnicity and how they think about it, but I do trust what you said, Christopher. But at the same time, I know that there are people that are a lot more knowledgeable now about choosing partners and how they choose them. And specifically, young people are being very cautious and careful too. Yeah.
I love to just go back if I could. So I started off a conversation talking about when we talk about this abuse, we know that that physical thing is very easy to see. You gave us a couple of other signs that kind of go on and happen long before the punching and the hitting on either gender, right? So you talked about one being where you typically have these activities and all of a sudden you're not allowed to go, or you're being, like questioned why you're doing this. And I've been doing this since forever. Why can't I do it now? That's one way of having a type of abuse, right? What are some of the other things that you want to share?
Some of the
other
things
signs
too, even being in the salon doc knows for so many years, there were different women over the years that would say, I'd be doing their hair and their partner might be texting them every 2 to 3 minutes or calling them or needing to know where you are all the time. And some people might misconstrue that as, oh, they crazy about me, or they really checking for me, or they love me. And sometimes it's just control, and it ain't about checking for you. And it's just about knowing an account of all your time, which I think people have to be very careful of, or somebody calling you a name or calling you the B word or pushing you around or slapping you or taking your purse, hiding your keys,
going through your phone,
saying you need to stay in tonight. You was with your friends last Friday. Why you need to go again? I'm not talking about normal relationship dynamics and things that people have to work through in order to come together as one. I'm talking about things that feel like control, that feel unhealthy and unsafe. And it's where you slightly diminish in who you be for the other person.
I'm laughing because I say it like this. I said, nothing makes a man more of a hypocrite than when he has a daughter. because you know everything. So you see things differently. And so for a lot of times, and this goes both ways with men and women, when somebody is doing something, the old saying was a thief always thinks somebody's stealing from them. So when somebody is accusing you or saying different things, that's really a projection. Me putting my thoughts onto you. I know when I ain't able to be reached in 4 hours, this is, where it is like that. So what I want you to start to think inside these relationships is like what Simmone is saying. What are the red flags? Because sometimes I do just want to know where you're at because I'm concerned and I'm caring. But then sometimes you got to be able to say, how can I discern whether this is the caring or this is the control? And that's the difficult part, because like what Dr. Muji was saying before, well, he do good and he do bad. So you're going to put it in the good basket because that's what you want. And I think what allows this to perpetuate is we see the good in the person and we're always wanting to believe that they're going to be that good, that that's who it is. And we ignore some of those other signs that can be, like Takari, what he was saying before, that can be quite dangerous. Because the hardest thing that I've seen is a man that's killed his person. And then to be ostracized by family and society, but to see that person suffer more than anybody could understand, because they did lose their best friend. They did lose the love, and they lost it at their own hands. It's easy when like somebody like hits your kid in the car, you could be mad at somebody. You could be mad at the police if they do something. But when you do it, I tell people, I've seen grown men in prison curled up in fetal positions, crying because the demons that they had to deal with inside from the ramifications of those actions. And it becomes more powerful when the hurt that they did was on somebody who they loved and cared about, because some of these men had children by this women. So it becomes very complicated.
You're talking about something, and I've worked with men in the past. I was thinking about some in particular for this group. We were facilitating, and these brothers had hurt people in the past, were reformed, working in the community, doing great things. Pillars of the community right now. Let me say it one more again. Pillars of the community right now. But because of past harms due to their partner, and the partner has forgiven them, and they're still with them, but now they see the impact it had on their children. And I'm talking about men who are pillars of the community now, doing great work, beloved and hated by their children.
In the home.
Hated in their home. So there's this juxtaposition too, that I now got to be all that in the community, because that's where I receive support and love, and all the good dopamine and serotonin levels and all the energy that comes to us in love from community, specifically Black community. But at home, my name is still trash because 27 years ago I choked their mama.
And they seen it.
And they saw it. And so now my sons are perpetuating that behavior, or my son is the victim of it, and his woman is mistreating him, or his partner is mistreating him. And what's wrong with my son? I didn't raise him to be no punk.
Because he don't want to be daddy.
Sure you did.
He goes the opposite end.
And then sometimes people see it and then they replicate.
Yeah,
they either
that was
replicate or they become the victim. So I kind of sided with my mom over the years, or I sided with whoever that victim was over the years, versus kind of siding with the same-sex partner who did it. So again, that mirroring behavior. If my dad was abusive in this way, if my mother was abusive in this way, I ain't gonna be no punk.
Yeah.
Ain't no woman treat me like my mama treated my dad. So watch what I'm finna do. I'm gonna put my neck in,
And that's what Christopher said. I always told most of my men, I said, if usually for the most part, if everything is kind of consistent, if you hit your woman, that usually means she beat you intellectually. And you couldn't handle it. So you propelled to go to a physical part where I can show you how I can beat you.
I love that you said physically hit, because that's the thing, but I'm also in connection with a lot of men and women who not physically harm their partner.
Oh, emotional abuse.
Verbally
Come on.
Are
verbal hits can be worse than physical.
You know, kind of edgy.
Yeah.
Kind of rude. Kind of mean. Yes. And what's the matter? Who did it? Because it wasn't me. So why are you so mean? Why you mean? You woke up today and you just mean.
Mad for no
you don't
reason.
have a good morning. You address people poorly. You exit and enter rooms with the negative energy. And your energy is felt, and you think that life owes you something because who did it? Who did it? Yes.
Come on to the mic because they can't hear you. I be listening to you on Michelle, so I can't hear
Excuse me. So to your point, all of that definitely sound true and definitely sound like something that can be a factor. But what if they whole past and the past relationship they dealt with, they had girls, this example, just cheating on them, or just dealing with hardships and stuff, and they never heal from that, and they just trauma dumping on to the next person. And
isn't it horrible?
I mean,
a trauma dump is just what you said,
and it's true,
and it ain't mine, so it's in my lap, but it don't belong to me.
But you got, you can definitely.
I ain't taking
it away.
No, but you know, see, we all say that. Hey, it's the song my mama used to play and my dad used to play, and I didn't understand it when I was little. And they go do 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 do. Do. Because everybody plays the fool. There's no exception to the rule. So everybody be like what they won't do, what they won't let get in. Everybody get that one or something like that. Where maybe it's not the Ike and Tina kind of beating, but it's the verbal, it's the emotional. But we all have these defense mechanisms. We talked about. I minimize it, or it's the frequency. It don't happen every day. I justify it. I shouldn't have said this. I shouldn't have did this. We rationalize it. We intellectualize it. All of these different things in which we have to be able to do. And I just put those out. So if you hear yourself making excuses, those are usually the defense mechanisms to protect ourselves and our loved
ones. And let's
one.
talk a little bit about excuses really briefly, because I think sometimes people think we make excuses to protect the abuser, right? I don't want him or her harmed. I don't want them arrested, and I don't want people to see. I don't want my mama now. I want my teeth, because I got some TTs and they're gonna run that. But I don't want them to hurt my partner, right? But what I want people to understand is generally when we can't tell the truth about what's happening, it is to protect the partner, but it's mostly to protect yourself. One, I can't tell myself the truth. I'm going to say it one more time. I can't stand in the mirror and say that I'm a victim of domestic violence in the house with a brother that I love every day, serve, take care of, build together in the community, at church. When we walk in on Sunday, we look good and this is what we do. So I'm protecting him, but mostly it is, I can't tell my truth to myself about my life. I cannot stand in it. So the protection is a lot of times for me
Hey, listen, I'm gonna say one thing, and I'm gonna leave the last word for Sister Simmone. You're listening to Nyumba Upendo on WNOB. We about to give way to Al Sharpton, so the
Yes.
show is just about over. But I'm gonna give Simmone the last word, just to lead the people to think
Okay.
about from what we talking
It
about.
goes so fast
The time.
here.
So I had to look up. I had to look at my.
It.
Yeah, I'm like,
I
is it?
looked up.
We
Like,
even had a
oh.
second break. Go, come on, we
Okay,
ran out of
so
time.
one thing I do want to say is I was just saying to Dr. Mutri is that it's pervasive. Violence is pervasive amongst teens, specifically in cities like Milwaukee, where we're getting calls. I'm getting calls from schools, principals, districts about intimate partner violence amongst teens in schools. 1 in 5 teens experience dating violence in Wisconsin. 1 in 5. 2 of 3 teens who were in abusive relationships never told an adult about it. And so that very early introduction to violence is
Talk to your
pervasive.
children.
Talk to your
We gotta
babies.
get you back. There's more.
Talk to your babies. Volunteer. Speak up, bruh, when you need to speak up. Give information. Love on yourself. Tell yourself the truth. There's 1-800 numbers, 24-hour crisis lines. The Aurora Healing and Advocacy Services number for domestic violence is 414-219-5555.
Nyumba Upendo, Milwaukee.
Thank you.